Multiple horror stories circulate the internet every day about developers using the cloud and receiving insane bills, either because they forgot to shut down an instance or fell victim to a DDoS attack. How do we get to this point? Why does an entire generation of new developers believe that the cloud is the only way to bring a startup or project to life? Dear friends, this is an analysis of how the cloud convinced an entire generation of developers and entrepreneurs to build on the infrastructure rather than their own. Quick story time. AWS launched in 2006 with a clear message: cost efficiency and scalability. The real innovation was in elastic computing, which is the ability to scale resources up or down based on demand, giving rise to the pay as you go model. And it was a game changer at the time, particularly compared to on premise data centers or VPS hosting. It was a true innovation. But advertising was relatively minimal back then. And yet, I remember AWS managed to secure a deal with the CIA for mission critical workloads. So, this increased their reputation. But everything changed when two other players wanted a piece of the pie. Okay. In reality, there was another one, but things didn't go well for them. I'm sorry, IBM, but you did well buying Red Hat. So, by 2013, the cloud marketing war had begun, with Microsoft alone pouring $1.5 billion into just advertising. And slowly the messaging shifted, not just targeting developers and engineers, but also executives and decision makers. And if you have worked in tech, you know what that means. When non technical people are in charge of tech decisions, they wouldn't market cloud services as serverless functions for buggy Python code that doesn't deserve a dedicated instance. Instead, they will pitch it to CEOs as the cloud is how businesses innovate. So, what this created was a lack of technical objectivity, an obsession with the next shiny object. Just put yourself in 2013 when all of this was new. So, cloud services are great for specific business needs, but from a financial standpoint, they often don't make sense, especially when technical expertise required to spin up cloud instances is the same needed to deploy on-premise service or VPS solutions that are far more cost-effective. So this created a loop. So this is how everything started, all right? And some companies were locked in after a contract for years. But now we have to answer one fundamental question. Let's first define what a cloud is, because multiple definitions out there only add confusion to a topic that has been intentionally made complex. So simply put, the cloud is someone else's infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean the hardware and software elements that allow you to serve users or run applications. So why is it that when we say the cloud, everyone immediately thinks of AWS, Azure, or GCP, right? They're the major players in the market with data centers worldwide, right? That's true. That's something positive. But rather than seeing the cloud as some advanced secret technology, it's more objective to think of it as a set of resources owned by a company. Okay? And those resources that you pay to use. Okay? Instead of building your entire infrastructure from scratch with your own hardware or renting a VPS, you can rely on the infrastructure of an established company with a vast network of remote servers, providing computing services over the internet. And this has many advantages. It sounds really great, right? But here's the thing. Let's just put this example. You're a startup that built your application on a major cloud provider. When users sign into your SaaS, they're connecting to a portion of their infrastructure, an infrastructure that you're paying for as if you own it. Okay? Now just scale this up. If every startup or business follows this same approach, it becomes the norm. And now engineers are then required to learn this system so companies can hire them to maintain it. It's a snowball effect. You're just creating demand for your own product, right? The real problem arises when a startup, often after a big Series A, okay, or a big funding round, or fueled by irrational optimism, which is not always that bad, is good, right? But sometimes it's bad, and this is one case, assumes that their application will blow up overnight, just expecting massive traffic from multiple countries every day. If you make that assumption before validating your idea and finding product market fit, it's easier for cloud providers to sell you unnecessary services, things that you don't actually need at your current stage. And then at this point, you find yourself in two situations. You have two options, right? You're burning VC money, and investors expect a fast ROI. So cutting costs is not a priority. So let's just pour money to validate the idea. Or you're operating with your own money or debt, so you have to be strategic. And when you have to be strategic, you make the numbers, the business numbers, and you will quickly realize that they don't make sense. All right. So, sure, cloud providers offer incredible redundancy, edge locations, automation, and serverless computing, and all the fun stuff. However, I will argue two main points. All right, two main points. The first one is you don't actually need most of these features, especially if your product hasn't been validated. I mean, just think of it. And second, the real technical debt you're paying is the lack of knowledge. So just just realize that many of these services can be easily replicated with open source solutions on a single instance. Because at the end, all you need is Linux and Docker, right? And we're gonna talk about Linux and Docker later in the channel. So I'm not dismissing cloud technology at all right? Extremely heavy workloads, the kind that only 1% of companies actually need, can benefit from cloud solutions. But for the vast majority of businesses, once you do the math, opting for the cloud is not a smart business decision because it's ridiculously expensive, as I will demonstrate later in the video, okay? Numbers don't lie. So I have seen people defend the cloud as if it's the ultimate technology that every business needs. So to those engineers and non-technical decision makers, let me say this. Technology is just a tool, a means to an end. The cloud makes sense for some things and not for others, depending on the context. This widespread belief that everything must be in the cloud is the result of aggressive marketing in its early days, all right, targeting individuals and startups new to the tech space. This question is crucial before making any decision that directly impacts your business or projects. I would say it depends on the context, but there are certain principles that I personally follow to determine whether incorporating the cloud into a workflow makes sense. However, regardless of the context, I believe that having the freedom to choose your tech stack and owning your data is more important than the risk of locked in when going the cloud route, which is a fact that is going to happen. Just look at how much they charge you to export your data. I always recommend a hybrid approach, owning your infrastructure and leveraging the cloud only when strictly necessary, like AI or machine learning workloads or serverless functions for like simple functions, as the best option in almost any scenario. And then just take the case of Ahrefs, the CEO analytics company. They save like around $400 million just not relying on the cloud. And there are multiple examples like this. And if you want to explore further, you can take a look at Dropbox or Hey.com. They have entire articles about this. The key point here is that the cloud is expensive, and you can achieve the same result for a fraction of the cost by running your own infrastructure. And no, you don't need to buy a server and install it in your basement, right? There are multiple companies that handle everything for you, including cooling, internet service, physical security, and all of this stuff to manage your servers while you ship applications, right? Which is important as a founder. It's not dismissing one or the other. Cloud is good for certain things. Self-hosting or managing your own infrastructure is good for other things, right? What matters is mathematically and financially it makes sense. And when you run the numbers, you will quickly realize, okay, no, there are definitely things that it will save in the long run and even in the short term by not going to the cloud and just leveraging specific features that I need for my application, which is one size doesn't fit all, right? So that's one thing, and I hope you gain a different perspective with this video because I've seen a lot of people that, and especially new developers, and I'm technically a new developer and I didn't fall into this trap because when your own money is on the line, then you have to be strategic, right? And a lot of people who recommend the cloud, they just don't run their own businesses, or they just handle the department and they're not burning their own money, which is another symptom of why engineers, extremely smart people, recommend the cloud when they know that it's not a good business decision. So there are multiple cases like this, and it really depends on balancing both. So I hope you gain some value in this video, and we're going to explore more topics of self-hosting or leveraging the cloud when necessary for AI and machine learning topics, or even spin up your own servers to handle AI workloads, which are necessary in this era of AI and serving your users with AI features.